So we're now into May. It's now the 2nd of May, 2025. And well, if you've been listening and following along, we've got criminals just moving in and stealing everything that you own. So on March the 19th, 2020, criminals attended in-trust private property to steal it for the purposes of money laundering and mortgage fraud. There's been 2 fraudulent mortgages. Now, I said something. I never consented. I said something, and I kept saying something. I went into the whorehouse at 850 Burdett Avenue 5 times, alone, pointed out all the flaws in their case, that there was no default on the mortgage. You can't, you're running a fraudulent foreclosure is what you're doing. And then they decided to embezzle the entire proceeds, leaving me homeless and destitute. So I had absolutely no say in where some of the property ended up. And some of the property ended up with a private business on Island Highway, ULUC Mini Storage. So there is actually no such thing as ULUC Mini Storage. That's like a face for private owners and staff who are choosing to commit indictable crime. And now they've doubled down, because what happened last August is I went to take the security back, because that's my job. I'm identified as the true owner. I'm identified as the beneficial owner, which is the true owner, even though it's in someone else's name. Common law spouses have the same rights as married persons here in British Columbia. So when one spouse passes away, the other spouse automatically inherits all of their property. That just makes sense, because a man and a woman become one. And my spouse spoke crystal clearly that everything he has is actually mine, and whatever I have is his. That's the way things work. It's worked that way for a very long time. So days after I was left homeless and destitute on purpose, I attend this location, ULUC Mini Storage. And I stand there and I cry my eyes out, and I meet this, one of the staff members there. And I explain, well, I've had my home stolen. So then, in error, because I'm in shock, I sign a rental agreement, which isn't a contract, it's a service agreement. You can't enforce the terms and conditions on the agreement, because that's trust property, and everything located inside that locker, and I didn't put it in that locker, belongs to the beneficial owner and no one else. And you can't sell it, because then you're trafficking in stolen property, because you received stolen property. Because let's go through this trust here. It's Victoria Ann, who's been appointed as the executor. That's the trustee. And Victoria has been given all of our property of every kind and wherever located to administer as I direct in the will, which is a trust. That's why there's a trustee. So this woman may convert or retain my estate as set out in paragraph 4A. Well, what does paragraph paragraph 4A say, and please excuse, yeah, I sound like a broken record because I'm not being listened to. So this is what happens when you're dealing with those who have no hope and no future. I like the eyes are blind, the ears are deaf. They don't care if they're committing indictable crime. They don't care if they're acting uncivilized. And this is definitely uncivilized, what's going on now. Anyway, paragraph 4A, let's read. We'll all read it together. In addition to all powers conferred by law, I give this woman the following powers to be exercised or not exercised at the discretion of this will, of this trust, for the administration. She can convert the property or any part of the property into money to decide how, when, and on what terms. She may keep the property or any part of the property in the form it is at my passing and for as long as she decides, even for the duration of the trusts in the will. The power applies even if the property is not an investment authorized, a debt is owing on the property, or the property does not produce income. So even if there's a debt owing on the property, it's this woman who has the power to decide what happens to the property, and no one else can step into that role, because if they do, now we've got identity theft. Someone's trying to pass themselves off. The owners of ULOC and the staff at ULOC are trying to pass themselves off as the true owners of the property inside that locker. Property Victoria didn't place inside the lock because Victoria was not consulted as to where the stolen property went. Once the property was moved off of where it belongs, you've now got trafficking in stolen property. And you cannot accept a valuable consideration when you are in possession of stolen property. So my spouse may at any time compromise, settle, or waive any claim due to or due by the estate for whatever consideration and on whatever terms she decides. She can extend, continue, or renew any evidence of any liability. So yet then why? Okay, so I've tried to go home. Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis of 1474 Faircliff Lane, Victoria, BC, are in possession of stolen property. They've known that since August the 27th, 2021. All of the criminals acting as private for-profit, municipal terrorist organs, they all know that that's stolen property. Emails go out on a consistent basis to all of these absolute useless private for-profit posing as public services. And these savages just move along because now there's a threat has come. Registered mail. A threat has come through registered mail that trust property is going to be trafficked because these persons, these private business owners, it's a private business. We don't deal in fiction. We see you, the criminals. That's who we see. We see you, the criminals. We see you threatening us all of the time. So Victoria never did actually owe anything. And she explained to these private owners at ULOC and the staff that the signature on the agreement had been rescinded. Like there is no agreement because Victoria receives absolutely nothing to live on, and that's on purpose. That's what Victoria's provided to live on. She lives on nothing. No financial resources are afforded. So here we've got correspondence that went out repeatedly and consistently. Here is one on April the 22nd. Intentional infliction of emotional harm. You did intentionally violate rule of law, Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I go through them. Intentionally did commit violation to the Criminal Code of Canada, like the other thieves who stole my in-trust home. left me homeless and destitute. You were informed no further payment was required. Owner of the property in trust has right to waive any claim. Clearly, we are dealing with persons who determine themselves to be above the law. You have to be deaf and sick not to understand what per the Criminal Code of Canada, you cannot auction stolen property. Now, you are guilty of theft, and you were informed if you sold property obtained by crime, you had to inform the buyer of your criminal actions. Because nothing in that locker can be replaced if it's sold unlawfully. Money is not important. You've taken a look at the monopoly money, haven't you? It says right on it, not legal tender. It's a promise to pay. Yeah, Canadian banknote, it says right on it, not legal tender. Yeah. So they were informed that they can write off, that they are going to write off anything that they believed they were owed. You need the consent of the owner of everything inside the locker to steal and auction the property. Do you have any idea how many times I've tried to take possession of my house, repeatedly to face criminal harassment and SWAT team assaults by sadistic, sociopathic Canadian citizen public servants? You've been uttering threats, intimidating to provide financial resources that aren't available. I can't afford to live. I can't afford to take care of myself properly. There was never a late payment. You were again informed. And again, I would not allow more harm to myself. You will identify who is in possession of the stolen property obtained by your hate crime. You're guilty of theft over $5,000. We're sick of your greed and lawlessness. You have no right under any circumstance to auction private interest personal property. No right, no right, no right. You best undo what you did. Who's the... So that's what they're doing, like they're threatening, constantly threatening. So let's just go through the crimes that they are committing, and they're willfully, knowingly, intentionally violating the criminal code. But what we know about Canada is its citizens are heartless, brainless, spineless, disgusting. Because if that's a business as they claim that it is, and you go and, I come from a family of business owners. Everybody knows that every single business has different write-offs. You offset what you believe are liabilities. Because, basically, businesses have that kind of protection. It's not rocket fucking science. Criminal code, let's see here. Well, let's take a look at what this says. Ignorance of the law. Well, they're in violation of Section 19, which states, ignorance of the law by a person who commits an offense is not an excuse for committing that offense. So what excuse then can you have? And this U-Lock mini storage. There's many locations throughout British Columbia. It was started by a family, and that family has many locations on the mainland, and then there's a couple locations over here. So Section 21. So everyone is party to an offense who actually commits it, does or omits to do anything for the purpose of aiding any person to commit it, or abets any person in committing it. So they're going to have to obtain consent from the owner of the property inside the locker. You just can't seize property that was already part of a crime, an indictable crime. You accepted stolen property. Did you ask where the property came from? You didn't find out why there's a bailiff? So these persons who own this private business obviously then are not familiar with Scripture. And Scripture is what's happening. Scripture's news at 11. It's what actually is currently going on. So Victoria is not going to be a party to your offense. So, and you do need to obtain consent. You have no right to seize the property. That's Section 21 of the Criminal Code. But you know what happens when you're dealing with. Let's look here. We've got Section 22, person counseling offense, where a person counsels another person to be a party to an offense, and that other person is afterward a party to that offense. The person who counseled is a party to that offense, notwithstanding the offense was committed in a way different from that which was counseled. So they're guilty of, well, they're premeditating a crime. They're premeditating a hate crime to steal and to silently auction off in trust private property that can belong to no one but the beneficial owner. Section 24 attempts. Everyone who having an intent to commit an offense does or omits to do anything for the purpose of carrying out the intention is guilty of an attempt to commit the offense, whether or not it was possible under the circumstances to commit the offense. So this has been going on for months, right? Because Victoria has the right to waive any claim. Victoria explained to them again and again and again and again and again. But common sense is not common amongst the murderers, thieves, and destroyers, disobeying a statute. Every person who, without lawful excuse, contravenes an act of Parliament by intentionally doing anything that it forbids, or by intentionally omitting to do anything that it requires to be done, unless a punishment is expressly provided by law, guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not more than 2 years. So there's a Trustee Act as well. And the Trustee Act makes it crystal clear as well, as does the trust, as we just went through again, that Victoria, there is no financial responsibility due to the owners, the private owners, and the employees of this business. It's a public service is what you're running. A public service. You're there to serve the public. You're there to support the public. Have you shown any kindness to Victoria? Because how long has it been in there? The stolen property. How many years have you been in possession of property obtained by crime? Compounding indictable offense. Every person who asks for or obtains or agrees to receive or obtain any valuable consideration for themselves or any other person by agreeing to compound or conceal an indictable offense is guilty. So that's exactly what they're doing. They're premeditating to do this, and they have been spoken to again and again. It all goes out in writing. There has to be proof that they've been spoken to, because you're not going to be able to fix what you're premeditating to do. And no, your fucking monopoly monkey money isn't more important than the law. The law is the law is the law, right? And you have to follow it. You're Canadian citizens. When you identify as a Canadian citizen, you agree to follow all of the acts and the statutes and the bylaws. And what you can't do, you see, because first in time, stronger in the law. First in time, stronger in the law. That's called a law maxim. So the trust was born in January of 2016. And that agreement, which is not a contract, it's a service agreement, with one who... Did the owners of ULOC sign that agreement? Did the staff at ULOC sign that agreement? Was Victoria under threatened duress when she was in this location? The answer is yes. So what right would you have then to auction stolen property? You wouldn't have that right at all. First in time, stronger in the law. So the trust trumps, it actually quashes what you believe you have the right to do. You don't have the right to do that. Corruptly taking a reward for recovery of goods. So that has been going on now. It is a crime. Victoria can't be a part of crime. Victoria can't commit crime against herself and her family. Then she's part of the problem, and Victoria is not part of the problem. Every person who corruptly accepts any valuable consideration, well, let's see. The fiat currency, which clearly states is not legal tender. It's not money. It's a promise to pay later. That's what they're all dealing in. That's what they believe that they're owed. So you private owners, and we'll have to find out your names, won't we? And you, Donna, I won't say your last name, but you, Donna, and the other staff, one of them is Genevieve. So you, Donna, and Genevieve, that's you. That's every person. And the owners of this West Shore ULOC, that's you. That's who they're talking about here in Section 142 of the Criminal Code, corruptly taking reward for recovery of goods. You threaten Victoria that if she doesn't pay up, we're gonna seize and fucking sell at fucking silent auction. Stolen property. Property we received in the commission of an indictable crime. Every person who corruptly accepts, well, so they're telling you that you're corrupt because you are corrupt. Every person who corruptly accepts any valuable consideration, do you understand what any means? It includes everything, including the fucking fiat currency. Any valuable consideration, directly or indirectly, under pretense or on account of helping any person to recover anything obtained by the commission of indictable offense. The property was obtained in the commission of an indictable offense. You took the property. That was the decision you made. Victoria had nothing to do with that decision that you made. So now what you've got here is proof beyond all reasonable doubt that you cannot take a reward for the recovery of goods. So even if Victoria took possession of her stolen security located at 604 Polyanthus Crescent in the district of Saanich, you still couldn't ask for a valuable consideration for the recovery of the goods because the goods are stolen. Do you understand that? No, of course you don't. Let's see. What else are you doing here? Well, you're committing the crime of common nuisance. It's a crime. It's an indictable crime here in Canada. Every person is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term of not more than 2 years, or is guilty of an offense punishable on summary conviction who commits a common nuisance, and by doing so causes physical injury to any person. Well, this is causing Victoria physical injury. Victoria is not a person. Victoria is a woman, identified as a foreign diplomat. And they're intentionally causing Victoria physical injury. They're doing it on purpose because they believe they have rights that they don't have. Just like Sandra Dennis and Benjamin Howe believe that they have rights that they don't have. So now we've got the crime of theft, and that's section 322 here. Everyone commits theft who fraudulently and without color of right. So that's what they're using. They've now converted. They believe that the agreement that they have, which is null and void, they believe that that gives them the right. But that's the color of right. That's what that is. That's a legal agreement. And we don't deal in legal. So unless the owners of this location and the staff have all signed that agreement, it's null and void. Like, it means nothing. Because it's not a valid contract. It doesn't meet the conditions of a valid contract, a lawfully binding contract. So you have no right. You have no right to well, what they've done is they've used the mail to commit another crime. They've registered mail in the commission of a crime. This company here, the owners and the staff of this location of this company. are threatening to steal property that doesn't belong to them so they can silent auction it. So they're premeditating. And you know, for a crime, you have to have, there's 5 elements to a crime. So there's the premeditation of the crime, and then there's the committing of the crime. So they're premeditating the crime, and now they're going to try to carry out their crime. Theft, section 322. Everyone commits theft who fraudulently and without color of right takes, or fraudulently and without color of right converts to their use or the use of another person anything, whether animate or inanimate, with intent to deprive temporarily or absolutely the owner of it, or a person who has special property or interest in it, of the thing or of their property or interest in it. Well, that's exactly what's happening, because what's inside that locker is trust property. It belongs to a trust. So you can't seize the locker and then have a silent auction, because then you're committing theft. And whoever moves the property out of that location after you complete your crime will also be committing theft. So you will need to inform the other criminals that they are, because you can't cover up your crime. You can't pretend like you're not committing a crime, because you are committing a crime. So the owners of this location and the staff are literally, well, they shouldn't be running a business, quite obviously, because they're sick. They, for some reason, like the bankers and the benchers and the police, all of whom are legal fictions, that's just a mask that these savages wear. They all believe themselves to be above the law. Theft from a person having special property or interest. So that's what trust property is. It's a special interest. It's special property. Special property would be private property. Special property would be baby pictures and documents. That's special property. So you are premeditating to violate section 328 of Criminal Code 322, right? Theft from person having special property. That's what you're doing. A person may be convicted of theft, notwithstanding that anything that is alleged to have been stolen was stolen. Yeah, that's what you're up to. So that property, you can't take the property. What part about that don't you understand? So if you don't understand that you live under all of the acts in Canada, if you can't understand that, if you can't understand that you're not above the law, then you shouldn't be running a business. Because you've not lost anything. You have not been harmed. You have not lost anything. Extortion. Section 346, everyone who commits extortion who, without reasonable justification or excuse, and with intent to obtain anything, by threats, accusations, menaces, or violence, induces or attempts to induce any person, whether or not he is the person threatened, accused, or menaced, or to whom violence is shown, to do anything or cause anything to be done. So when you decided to send out that registered mail, that's violence. And Victoria gets to determine what your actions are. It's an act of violence. You are trying to obtain what you're not owed by threats and accusations and menaces. That's what you're doing. .346 of the Criminal Code. That's what you're trying to extort Victoria after she told you. First in time, stronger in the law. First in time, stronger in the law. And we went over. That trust is a non-negotiable contract. It's a lawful binding contract. It's not legal, it's lawful. It's a lawfully binding contract, and it binds you, the owners and the staff of West Shore ULOC, from completing your hate crime. Section 354. What does this say here? Possession of property obtained by crime. Everyone commits an offense who has in their possession any property or thing or any proceeds of any property or thing, knowing that all or a part of the property or thing or the proceeds was obtained or derived directly or indirectly from the commission in Canada of an offense punishable by indictment. So you made the choice to be in possession of property obtained by a crime, and you knew within a week, because Victoria told you what happened when she came in there, that you were in possession of property obtained by a crime. Now, whether you understood that or not is not Victoria's problem. Victoria explained to you what had happened. So you're in possession of property obtained by a crime, so you then cannot turn around and seize the stolen property and sell it so you can make a profit, because that's a crime. So then you believe for some reason that you're above the law. Here we go. This is section 355. Point 4. Sorry, point 2. Beg pardon, point 2. Section 355.2, trafficking in property obtained by crime. Everyone commits an offense who traffics in any property or a thing or any proceeds of any property or thing, knowing that all or part of the property, thing, or proceeds was obtained by or derived directly or indirectly from the commission in Canada of an offense punishable by indictment. So do you notice how, like, they're not even listening? Because they as well believe that they're all above the law. They believe that worthless fucking fiat currency is more important than kindness, is more important than following a non-negotiable contract that was born long before a service agreement was signed by a woman under duress and threat. So then their service agreement would be null and void. Because Victoria needs to conduct business with other men and women, not fictions like ULOC Mini Storage, a public service. Possession of property obtained by crime, trafficking. So this is what they've done now. This is what they've done. This is section 355.4 of the Criminal Code of Canada. They are premeditating to traffic because they're in possession of property obtained by crime. Everyone commits an offense who has in their possession, for the purposes of trafficking, any property or thing or any proceeds of any property or thing, knowing that all or part of the property, thing, or proceeds was obtained by or derived directly or indirectly from the commission in Canada of an offense punishable by indictment. So that's what they're premeditating to do. And they've let me know that by using the mail to send out menaces and threats and violence. Yeah, that's what they're planning on doing. Having in possession when complete. So this is section 358 of the Criminal Code of Canada. So for the purposes of section 342 and 354 and paragraph 356(1)(b), the offense of having in possession is complete when a person has, alone or jointly with another person, possession of or control over anything mentioned in those sections, or when they aid in concealing or disposing of it, as the case may be. So they're trying to dispose in trust private property so they can receive for themselves a valuable consideration because they believe they're owed money that they're not owed. Then we went over this, and we went over it, and we went over this. This is like talking to this Daniel Carroll and this Graham Mack and those that David Masahara and Carolyn Murray, who all wear the mask of like benchers and bankers and bank solicitors. False pretense. Well, this is section 361. A false pretense is a representation of a matter of fact, whether present or past, made by words or otherwise, that is knowing by the person who makes it to be false, and that is made with a fraudulent intent to induce the person to whom it is made to act on it. So they're going to try to pretend like they're owed money they're not owed on that locker, and they're going to, well, they're pre-planning, right? They're premeditating to silently auction off interest private property obtained in the commission of crime. And as we're going through all of this, it's pretty obvious what's going on. They're committing crimes. So now they're going to be working to convince the public under false pretense that there's a debt due on the property inside that locker, when there isn't a debt due on the property inside the locker. So false pretense and false statements. So what they did when they sent the registered mail out, and that's using the mail to commit an indictable crime. That's a crime. So they're presenting to this woman who's speaking to you, they're presenting false pretenses, and they're making false statements to this woman to try to induce her to enrich them, because they feel that they're above the law. The owners of this U-Lock mini storage and the staff, they all believe that they're above the law, that they can do whatever the fuck they want to whoever they want, and they're never going to be held accountable. But that is Canada today, isn't it? That is the typical, average, everyday Canadian citizen. Just a heartless, brainless, literal savages. Literally savages. Not people, humans. Humans are monsters. Everyone commits an offense who, by a false pretense, whether directly or through the medium of a contract obtained by a false pretense, obtains anything in respect of which the offense of theft may be committed or causes it to be delivered to another person, obtains credit by false pretense or by fraud, knowingly makes or causes to be made directly or indirectly a false statement in writing with intent that it should be relied on with respect to the financial condition or means or ability to pay of himself or herself by any person or organization that he or she is interested in, or that he or she acts for the purpose of procuring in any form whatever, whether for his or her benefit or the benefit of that person or organization. The delivery of personal property, the payment of money, making a loan, blah, 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 blah. A bill of exchange. So that's what they're doing. Their lies are never going to be the truth. They're telling lies that they're owed money on that locker, and they're not. And now, because they're believing their own lies, they believe that they have the color of right to traffic in stolen property. Now we're at section 380. Let's read it. Fraud. Everyone who, by deceit, falsehood, or other fraudulent means, whether or not it is a false pretense within the meaning of this act, defrauds the public or any person, whether ascertaining or not, of any property, money, or valuable security, or any service. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. They're premeditating to commit the offense of fraud. They're going to defraud Jack and Victoria of their property. By fraudulent means. They're going to steal interest private property, of which they have absolutely no right to do. Intimidation. Well, that's why they're sending registered mail. They're sending registered mail in the hopes that they can intimidate Victoria into committing an indictable crime. They're going to try to force Victoria to commit indictable crime. Because Victoria is obviously dealing with the owners of this business and the staff of this business who have proven themselves to be criminals. So this is section 423. Everyone is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment. Who wrongfully and without lawful authority for the purpose of compelling another person to abstain from doing anything that they have the right to do, or to do anything that they have a lawful right to abstain from doing. So Victoria has a lawful right to abstain from providing a valuable consideration to the owners of this private business for the recovery of the property obtained in that locker, because that property in that locker was obtained in the commission of a crime. And for some, well, it's not that you're acting stupid. It's pretty obvious that you are this stupid. Because you are required as a Canadian citizen to know all the acts, all the statutes, all the you're required to know them. You're required to follow the common law, which is do unto others as you'd have them do to you. You know, love your neighbor like you love yourself. So they've committed a hate crime. That's what they've done. They are premeditating, and have been for months, a hate crime. Because they've been sending out threats and menaces in the mail for a long time after they were informed that they had no right to receive anything. Willfully causing event to occur. So they are premeditating. This is section 429 of the Criminal Code of Canada. They are willfully causing an event to occur. This is everyone who causes the occurrence of an event by doing an act or by omitting to do an act that is its duty to do, knowing that the act or omission will probably cause the occurrence of the event, and being reckless whether the event occurs or not, shall be deemed, for the purposes of this part, willfully to have caused the occurrence of the event. So you don't have the color of right. You could never obtain the color of right to seize in trust private property, because first in time, stronger in the law. You have an agreement, you don't have a contract, and you are premeditating to willfully cause the theft of property that you received in the commission of an indictable crime. Do you understand that? Victoria is speaking to you. You're a public service, and the public needs to be aware of your acts. Mischief. This is section 430. Everyone commits mischief who willfully destroys or damages property, renders property dangerous, useless, inoperative, or ineffective, obstructs, interrupts, or interferes with the lawful use, enjoyment, and operation of property, obstructs, interrupts, or interferes with any person in the lawful use, enjoyment, or operation of property. So that's been happening wasn't September of 2018, when Victoria received in the mail an outright lie that her and her spouse were in default of a mortgage that didn't exist, by Daniel Carroll, who then has orchestrated all of this ugliness against Victoria and of course David Eby's all about it. So that's what they're planning on doing. They're planning to commit the indictable crime of mischief. And so will whoever decides to believe these liars that there's money owed on that locker when there isn't money owed on the locker. So this is section 462.31. Everyone commits an offense who uses, transfers the possession of, sends or delivers to any person or place, transports, transmits, alters, disposes of, or otherwise deals with in any manner and by any means any property or any proceeds of any property with intent to conceal or convert that property or the proceeds, knowing or believing that, or being reckless as to whether all or part of that property or of those proceeds was obtained or derived directly or indirectly as a result of the commission in Canada of a designated offense. So they're in possession of proceeds of crime, and now they're seeking to launder that property. That's what they're going to try to do. So this is a hate crime. What they're doing, it's a hate crime. Attempts and accessories. This is section 463. Except where otherwise expressly provided by law. Okay, let's get something straight right here, right now. Statutes are not law. An act is not a law. Acts aren't law. That's why it's an act. It's acting as a law. But it's not a law, right? Pretty fucking obviously, because how can this level of corruption now be the Canadian way and the Canadian citizens' way, and none of these fucking brainless beasts, these heathens, these fucking humans who are legally defined as monsters, be getting away with this kind of fucking ugliness and savagery? Uncivilized savages. And your beast brains who just fucking spin on murder, theft, and destruction all day, every day. Except where otherwise expressly provided by law, the following provisions apply in respect of persons who attempt to commit or are accessories after the fact to the commission of offenses. So this is section 463, attempts and accessories. Everyone who attempts to commit or is an accessory after the fact to the commission of an indictable offense for which, on conviction, an accused is liable to be sentenced to imprisonment for life is guilty of an indictable offense. Well, of course you should fucking go to jail for the rest of your lives. This is mischief. You're premeditating to commit the crime, indictable crime of mischief, where you're going to destroy Victoria's life by opening up that locker, which will be a hate crime in itself, and then silently auctioning off property that doesn't belong to you. It never belonged to you. It doesn't matter what you believe your agreement says, an agreement that you wrote up. A trust trumps your agreement. And Victoria would be the only woman in the world to decide how and when that property is disposed of, not the brainless beasts, private owners of West Shore ULOC and their employees. Well, here we've got section 467. 467.11, participation in activities of criminal organization. Every person who, for the purpose of enhancing the ability of a criminal organization to facilitate or commit an indictable offense under this or any other act of Parliament, knowingly, by act or omission, participates in or contributes to any activity of the criminal organization is guilty. So now what they're doing is they're participating in activities of criminal organizations, which are the following: CIBC, Fulton and Company, Cox Taylor, the Supreme Court of British Columbia, the City of Victoria, the West Shore RCMP, Saanich Police Department, Victoria Police Department, BCNDP. Those are all criminal organizations. Well, just the RCMP at any detachment, if you're paying attention to what's going on around you. Because now what they're doing is they're doing exactly the same thing that Daniel Carroll did. Daniel Carroll lied that there was a debt owing on property that wasn't owed, so Daniel Carroll could steal the property and then steal the proceeds of their crimes. And so now these private owners and the staff at this location are doing exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. And now they've just used the mail. Everything that has been stolen has to be returned in the condition it was upon the theft. Sick evildoers intentionally do cause irreparable harm. So that email went out 10 days ago on April the 22nd after Victoria received a threat from an employee at West Shore ULOC. And yeah, let's identify who this assailant is. This is Donna Fraser, who seems to run that location for the owners. Yeah, because Victoria doesn't deal in fiction. So you're also ignoring the Trustee Act of British Columbia, so you wouldn't actually be able to seize the property and sell it. So let's see why they're pissed. So we're not sure if you are aware, but this fellow here, this David Webb, has been sounding the alarm for a long, long time. Now, the crime committed against myself and my family and our in-trust private property began in September of 2018, so this is what's going to be happening for everybody. That's right, brainless brute beasts acting as bankers, solicitors, judges, politicians, police are stealing everything protected by a trust. Trust protection, so they, liars and cheaters, can pocket the wealth of the true beneficial owner. Foreign diplomat victim of fraud on the corrupt BC Supreme Kangaroo Court of Compulsive Liars created testimony and attached safe links. So the links are proof positive of what's gone on and what continues to go on, and how corrupt and disgusting these Canadian citizens are. Be aware, close to twice a week across Canada, a mortgage-free homeowner is robbed of their security by application title fraud, so the rich get richer while the homeowner is left homeless and destitute. Drive-by 604, Paulanthus Crescent in Saanich, a home purchased January 2003, paid for in full in August 2017, then robbed by CIB solicitors, David E.B., Benchers, police, BC sheriffs. Land unlawfully sold to Asians who illegally passed off 1 year to the date of purchase to real estate investors of Victoria, generating passive income, renting out both floors of a widow's family dwelling. First fraudulent mortgage for $680,000, the second fraudulent mortgage for $749,000. Victim relentlessly assaulted by persons acting as Victoria and Saanich police to keep criminals safe. Just imagine the property tax the criminals acting as a district of Saanich are generating when the residential property that belongs to Jack and Victoria is used as commercial property. Google Alan Katz to learn fraud is out of control because public servants aren't doing their job. Well, there's the criminal notebook. I mean, we can go through that. Look at all the crimes they're committing. This is the Canadian Victims' Bill of Rights. So reporting of offense. For the purpose of subsection 1, if an offense is reported to the appropriate authorities in the criminal justice system, the investigation of the offense is deemed to begin at the time of the reporting. And yet, not once, not ever, every single time Victoria has reported the offense, and Victoria has been reporting the offense hundreds of times to hundreds of different brainless beasts, and not once have they ever begun an investigation. Victoria has to be her own investigator. Well, there's the link to the August 29th premeditated violent hate crime committed by armed and dangerous private employees of Municipal Criminal Organization, District of Saanich. Look at this, Secrets and Shadows. So this is Sam Cooper, who's talking about the absolutely corrupt David Eby, So, David Eby, what did you do with the registered mail package you received from Victoria? Who was reporting an offense, David? Did you begin an investigation, David? No, you see, David's a criminal. He's going around stealing inheritances from the true owners so it can enrich itself. Aren't you, David? Carney coming for your home. Gee, you think I'm joking? Do you think I'm kidding? Because if Victoria can provide for you 2 or 3 witnesses of the truth, then the truth has been established. And Victoria doesn't argue. Arguing is for filthy fools who don't know what they're talking about. Still stealing homes. How politicians steal homes and sell them for profit. Well, that's what David Eby's a part of. So if David Eby knew what was happening, and it did know what was happening, and then it didn't do anything about it, then it's just as guilty as Daniel Carroll and Graham Mack and the 5 brainless beasts who are pretending to be the most corrupt court in the world, the BC Supreme Court. CIBC criminal organization, criminals acting as BC Supreme Court benchers, BC NDP politician David Eby, Senate policy enforcement, bailiffs all guilty of robbing 604, Polyanthus Crescent, Victoria, BC, Canada from true owners, so thieves, tyrants, and thugs could embezzle $680,000 plus. Property used for money laundering. And with the 2 fraudulent mortgages. Oh, look at this. This is in the UK. They're stealing property in the UK as well, just like they're doing to me and my family. They're doing it there too, at an alarming rate. BC Supreme corrupt benchers rob land and security from beneficial owners so they could embezzle the sale price, leaving the executrix homeless and destitute. The atrocity is now business as usual for police, politicians, solicitors, bankers, bailiffs, all agents of fiction, tyrants, thugs, and thieves. We victims looked for comforters but found none, as the scriptures foretold. So this was a post. So once you pay off your house, you should own it. Losing a $300,000 house that you've owned for 30 years, over $2,000 in taxes should be illegal. Well, here we went over all the crimes of Daniel Carroll. We went over all the sections of the criminal code. So you've got Daniel Carroll, you've got Graham Mack, you've got Peter Innes, who was pretending to be the bailiff. So Peter Innes, on the morning of March 19th, when you trespassed upon Victoria's private property, and Victoria called around to different agencies to learn that none of the agencies were open, because you figured you needed to hear from someone else to get the fuck out of this woman's house and get the fuck off the property. You proved yourself to be an absolute fucking idiot. Victoria is the only woman in the world with the authority to tell you to get out of her house and to get off her property. No one else has that authority. Victoria is the true owner of the property. Why were you even there? There was a ban on forced evictions in March, because that's when the scamdemic had popped off. It had burst open. What were you even doing there during a ban on forced evictions? How many times did you speak to Daniel Carroll? So March 19, 2020, persons employed by Wishaw ULOG did accept property obtained by false pretenses contrary to Section 354. To be informed by the true owner she was robbed yet did not report to Wishaw. RCMP being possession of property obtained by crime, becoming accessories after the fact contrary to Section 463, participating in activities of criminal organization. No person may receive a valuable consideration when in possession of property obtained by a crime. To menace and threaten Victoria to pay storage locker fees is the offense of extortion. To demand Victoria provide financial resources she does not have impedes her from attempting to save her own life, and that's Section 262 of the Criminal Code of Canada. Oh, but what we know about Nikki Sharma and Shannon Seltien and the rest of the fucking brainless beasts masked up as BC prosecution, you are absolutely, you're useless. What the fuck do you actually do all day? Because it's not fighting crime. It's not fighting for justice for victims of crime. So what is it that you're doing? But you are wasting time and valuable resources falsely accusing the true owner of property, sending out SWAT teams consistently, repeatedly, criminally harassing, threatening, menacing, committing common nuisance against a woman that you absolutely hate. A woman who can actually fucking prove to be a foreign diplomat. So how much fucking authority do you actually have? Quo warranto, private owners of West Shore ULOC who have not been caused loss, harm, nor injury at all. You never have been. And yet you're claiming, oh, we're allowed some money. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're sick. You need help. You're sick. What's the most valuable currency in the world, owners of West Shore ULOC? It's called kindness. It's called kindness and courtesy to a foreign diplomat. So if that property in the locker belongs to a foreign diplomat, you wouldn't be seizing it and selling it at private auction because we've got a fucking agreement here. We've got an agreement. She hasn't fucking held her end of the agreement. There is no agreement. That's not a contract. There's no consideration offered in the contract. And if a real woman is contracting with a fiction, and West Shore ULOC is a fiction, there's no such thing. There's just owners, males and females, who own that private location. And if you didn't sign the agreement, then your agreement is null and void. It's of no force or effect. So Pecora versus Pecora. Have you ever read that? Court opinion, Pecora versus Pecora. The owner of real property is the beneficial owner, even if the property is in someone else's name. So that's what's coming for everyone. Breach of trust by Saanich public servants. That's exactly what they're doing. Report corruption. Report corruption. Right. Report corruption to the corrupt? Really? Well, these are acts of genocide. Dangerous offenders. That's who we're dealing with. SWAT teams are dangerous offenders. Causing serious injury. Well, being gang stalked. That's what they're doing. Oppression. See, the agreement that Victoria was offered is unenforceable because it's crime. It's the committal of crime. The private owners of West Shore ULOC cannot make a claim to what's inside that locker, and neither can the staff, and neither can anyone else make a claim to what's inside that locker. You're thieves. And common law rights supersede your legal agreement. Legal is not law. Right to courtesy and respect. So, are the owners of West Shore ULOC treating Victoria, a victim, with courtesy and respect? No, they're discriminating against her because she knows her rights and she's asserting her rights. So now they're... Oh, okay, so every individual is equal before and under the law and has the equal right to, and has the right to equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination. So then why is Donna Fraser and these owners who have to be identified, why are they then believing that they're above the law and that Victoria doesn't have the right to equal protection and equal benefit of the law? Early in time, stronger in the law. You've got a copy of the non-negotiable contract. It's a trust. It holds the property inside that locker, and you're a third-party interloper. You're a third party, so you can't make a claim to the property inside that locker. If you decided to take property obtained in the commission of a crime, that's your problem, not ours. What's the law on stolen property? You can be charged if you buy or obtain items that are stolen, or that you should known were stolen. Well, so you've been informed for years that that's stolen property. Possession of property obtained by crime, trafficking in property obtained by a crime, possession of property obtained by crime for the purposes of trafficking. So that's exactly what they're premeditating to do. They're premeditating to violate all of those sections of the criminal code. Mortgage fraud. Oh, they stole an automobile and interest private. They stole that. Yeah, they just fucking stole everything. And here's the land title search from Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis, who are masked up as Haltham Holdings, criminal organization. Oh, look. Oh, a taxation authority, Saanich. The corporation of the District of Saanich. Oh, it's a corporation. Oh, and Scotiabank has got your fraudulent mortgage. Well, there's Victoria's home. That's been Victoria's home since January 2003. Oh, Victoria can take possession of her property, but when she tries to do that, Benjamin Howe and Sandra Dennis call their buddies here at these criminal organizations, terrorist organizations, posing as City of Victoria and District of Saanich, and they send out SWAT teams. So they're planning to trespass on Victoria's property. Let's see here. Obstructing justice, that's what they're doing. Oh, and this is why they're sending out the SWAT team. They're using Darvo. They're going to switch around. They actually believe that they're above the law. This Dean Murdoch and this Dean Duthie are both employed by the corporation of the District of Saanich, was a criminal organization. They believe that they're above the law. Oh, the Canadian Victims' Bill of Rights. Oh, we're to be treated with courtesy, compassion, respect, and respect for our dignity. So is that what the private owners and the staff are doing of West Shore ULOC? Are they treating Victoria with courtesy, compassion, and respect? Threatening, sending out registered mail to threaten Victoria that you're going to commit dozens and dozens and dozens of violations of different acts and statutes across Canada because you figure that you're above the law? Well, Section 122. So law maxims, there's so many of them, right? If Victoria doesn't contest what's happening, then she consents to what's happening. So they're going to need consent to seize the contents of the locker and auction it off. They're going to need Victoria's expressed written consent. And that agreement that Victoria quashed months ago is not an agreement that you can seize and traffic property that you obtained in the commission of a crime. Isn't that right? Dean Murdoch, masked up as the mayor of a criminal organization, District of Saanich. Section 21, everyone is a party to an offense who actually commits it, does or omits to do anything for the purpose of aiding any person to commit it, or abets any person in committing it. So Victoria will not be omitting to inform the owners of West Shore ULOC and their staff and your staff that you do not have consent. Your agreement was quashed months ago. The trust owns that property inside that locker, and you're not owed anything. You can't take a valuable consideration because you made the choice to receive property obtained by crime. That was the choice that you made. Police misconduct, well, that's all they're up to. Oh, look at here's the dolt himself. Because this wouldn't be happening if Victoria was was back on her land, utilizing her security. That does still belong to her. Property doesn't change ownership because it's captured by pirates and thieves. Yeah, Canadian citizens, just absolute liars. Numbers 5:7. Well, this is blasphemy, right? The definition of blasphemy is written in the book of Numbers. When you go around and you harm someone else, and you know that you're doing that, that's blasphemy. You're never forgiven. You never will be. You don't deserve to be forgiven for that. So that's what they're up to. Filed injunctions, sent registered mail to the Chief Justice of BC, who aided and abetted all the hate and all the ugly. Wow. What a fucking joke, eh? What a fucking joke.